Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon where you are in the world, and welcome to today's DevOps.com webinar. I'm Charlene O'Hanlon, moderator for today's event, and I welcome you. As always, we have a great webinar on tap, but before we get started, we do have a few housekeeping items we need to go over. First of all, today's event is being recorded, so if you miss any or all of the event, you will have the opportunity to access it later on demand. Following today's webinar, we will be sending out an email that contains a link to access the webinar. And we are taking questions from the audience. So if you have a question for either of our speakers, please don't wait, don't hesitate. Just use your GoToWebinar control panel and submit your questions. And we will try to get to as many as we can near the end of today's webinar. And you can see on this housekeeping slide, we have a handy dandy guide for you to access the GoToWebinar control panel and submit questions. And at the end of today's webinar, we are also doing a drawing for 4 $25 Amazon gift cards. So please stick around. Hopefully you will be one of our 4 lucky winners. All right, with that, let's go ahead and kick off today's webinar, which is Demystify the DevOps Landscape with the Periodic Table of DevOps Tools and DevOps Diagram Generator. I'm really looking forward to this one because it's got a demo. Our speakers today are Brian Foster, who's Enterprise Architect and Sales Engineer at Digital.ai, and Scott Erlanger, who's Director of Product Marketing, Agile, and DevOps at Digital.ai. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. Really appreciate your being here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Charlene. It's great to be here. As Charlene just mentioned, I'm Scott Erlanger. I'm the Director of Product Marketing of Agile and DevOps at Digital.ai, and I'm joined here today by Brian Foster, who's an Enterprise Architect and a Sales Engineer at Digital.ai. So during the webinar today, we're going to have the opportunity to show you our latest version of our periodic table of DevOps tools, and Brian's actually going to show how to apply this to your release processes and how to improve your DevOps transformation processes. So jumping right into things, a bit of an introduction about who is Digital.ai, because it's a fairly new name and many of you may not have heard it yet, but we essentially are a combination of 5 different companies that formed earlier this year that cover the enterprise agile planning space with CollabNet version 1, in-app protection and app management solutions with ArcSan, DevOps application release orchestration and deployment automation with Zebia Labs, and Zebia Labs is also, the company that formed the periodic table of DevOps tools. Continuous testing with Experitest and AI-powered analytics of Numerify. So, the DevOps landscape. Many, as you can tell by this sort of word cloud that you have here, it can be a bit overwhelming. All these terms come up all the time. Things from DevOps to security to monitoring to release, collaboration. It can just be completely overwhelming on how to even get started with the DevOps transformation process. But what we want to show you here today is that it doesn't have to be overwhelming, that there are ways to improve this process. I mean, making it even more complicated is that you see charts like this, which is actually from the cloud native landscape, which shows you all the different companies that are in the cloud native space alone. When you include all the other companies that also are in the DevOps space, it can be completely overwhelming. And no wonder companies have such a hard time getting started with their defining the release processes and selecting their DevOps tools. When you have such a wide array of different tools to choose from, it can absolutely be a daunting experience. So many of you are probably asking yourself, with all these different possible tools and all these different choices that we can make with our DevOps processes, how do I even get started? Because obviously there's a lot of different choices that you can make and a lot of different ways that you can go, and some of them may be better for your particular organization or for the problems that you're looking to solve. Well, the first problem, first part of your solution, of course, is to identify what problem are you looking to solve. There's a myriad of different ways and different problems that you can fix as part of your DevOps flows, but you need to start with the ones that are the most important problems and focus on those before really trying to boil the ocean and solve everything all at once. And the next step is that you have to pick which tools do you want to actually use. I mean, for any of these different pieces of your release process, there's several different tools, as we'll show you on the periodic table, that you can choose. And many of them will be able to solve your problem, but some of them might be better for the specific type of problem that you're actually looking to solve. And again, picking the right one can really make the difference and really help your organization be as efficient and productive as possible. Once you've selected the tools for the problems that you're looking to solve, you have to then connect them up and form a process. This is your end-to-end release process that basically takes your ideas from your planning stage and produces your software in production. And how you stitch them up, then is the process that you're then going to follow, and the choices that you make allow this process to be as efficient as possible. And we're going to now dive into this a little bit more detail and show you some of the tools that you have available that can help you along these steps of defining your DevOps process. So the first question was, how do you know which problems to solve first? Well, these are some of the key questions that you should be asking yourself, and sort of what should factor into your decision process. What problems is your company running into that's costing you time? Is your release process as efficient as it could be, or are there steps that's taking your development time, development team time that could then be using to write software or develop the product rather than worrying about the release? Is your software release process buggy, and does it require rollbacks and restarts? What's impacting your ability to release efficiently, correctly every single time? What problems are you running into that's holding you back from releasing as often as you'd like to? What are your bottlenecks? Things like manual approvals or handoffs that are making it so you can't release as frequently as you'd like to. And risk, is your release process unpredictable? Do you have compliance issues that you need to worry about, that you have trouble adhering to? Are you worried about security holes in your product once it's released into production? All of these are risks that can creep their way into the software release process, and they're the types of problems that you need to think about when you're selecting the tools for your release tool chain. Well, the periodic table of DevOps tools is here to help you select the best tools for your release process. And for several years now, it's been the definitive guide for the DevOps tools landscape. And you can see a picture of version 4.2, which is our latest one over there on the right. A bit of history of the periodic table. It was first introduced in 2015 by ZB Labs. And I mentioned earlier, but ZB Labs is now part of Digital.ai. It includes 120 tools across 17 different categories. And the real purpose of the periodic table is that it enables organizations to identify sort of who are the top, the best of breed tools across several different categories of DevOps. As you can see by the different colors on the table, each color represents a different tool category, from AI ops to cloud to release management. And by looking into these categories, you're then able to learn about some of the top performers, that could be investigated as part of your solution. So, this is version 4.2. The previous version was version 3. So you might want to know what's new about version 4.2. Well, a bit of background about how this table was created. We actually, earlier this year, had a voting process where users like yourself were able to vote on your favorite and what you think are the most useful DevOps tools. And we selected from over 18,000 ballots across over 400 different tools to form this latest version of the table. And one key thing to note is that, this version 4.2 of the table really represents an evolving landscape of DevOps. Looking at this compared to the previous version, there's 19 companies who are in here for the first time. But it also shows an evolution of some players who have been here for the long haul. There's 32 companies who have actually been in all editions since the table debuted back in 2015, but, with some new additions and different tools. And there's 9 new and updated categories since the last time. I'm not going to walk through all these right now, but some of the ones to highlight, things like enterprise agile planning, value stream management, serverless and platform as a service, AI ops. These categories basically show how the landscape of DevOps has evolved over the years, and even over the last couple of years since the last version was created. Things are always moving and things are always changing. And the idea behind the periodic table is that it shows you sort of who are the most influential tools in the DevOps landscape now, and this is going to continue to be updated, as the landscape changes. So walking through the periodic table of DevOps a little bit more, just a short, I'm not going to go obviously into every single tool, all 120 that are there, but to highlight the categories so you can get an idea as to what's in the table. You have AI ops and analytics, artifact package management, cloud, collaboration, configuration automation, containers, database management, deployment, source control management, enterprise agile planning, release management, security, serverless, platform as a service. continuous integration, issue tracking, and ITSM, testing, and value stream management. As you can see, it covers a very wide base of different functionalities. And by going through each of these different categories that I've just highlighted, you can be able to pick, and select and investigate the different tools that cover these different functional areas. An additional thing that Digital.ai provides is what we call the DevOps Diagram Generator, as you see a picture over there on the left. And this is also located online. What this allows you to do is to select tools directly from the periodic table and build your own pipeline. So you might be pulling together your DevOps flow, and you're wondering which release management tool you should pick. Well, you can then pick a release management tool to pull into this, or you might want to know which clouds tools you should pull into this. And this allows you to essentially to build a pipeline that you'll be able to use in your own organization and help guide your DevOps transformation process, and something that you can share with your team so that they can work towards defining their process as well. But obviously these are just pictures, and I want to, give you an opportunity to see these actually in action, from our actual website. Okay, make this a little bit bigger for you. So this right here is the periodic table, interactive version of the periodic table of DevOps tools on our website. You can download your own PDF version that you can print out and hang on your wall, or you can actually use the live interactive version, which lets you pick out the different tools across all these different categories. Let's just say, for example, you're looking to, to select a containers, and you want to add Docker to your pipeline. Well, you click on this, and you learn more about it. You see Docker, it gives you the explanation of what Docker is. It selects some other tools that may be similar to this or work with Docker that you'd want to check out as well. Even links to external sites where you can learn more about Docker. But the thing that I'm going to show you next is you can also add this to your pipeline diagram. And by clicking on that, it's been added to your pipeline diagram, and I show you this over here. And you want to add a different tool. Let's go to another category. You're going to go to deployment, Digital.ai deploy. Obviously one of our favorites. You can then, look at this, look at some competitors of this as well, so you can learn more about them if those are the right solutions, or then add this to your diagram as well. And by going through this process, you're able to, learn about all the tools within this interactive version of the periodic table, and then also build your pipeline diagram as well. And the nice thing about this, build your own pipeline diagram, is that you can then go and use this tool, which is called the DevOps Diagram Generator, which we talked about earlier. That then you can then build your own your DevOps diagram. So it's as simple as that. You visualize your pipeline, and it will build a diagram for you. And so, this is the interface right here. You can see that Digital.ai deploy is there, as well as any other thing is located there as well. So now getting back to some examples here as well. The one I just showed you some basic use of that particular DevOps diagram generator. But it can actually be used to generate something a lot more complicated. Like you look at this picture right here, you see tools across all categories, that we've already mentioned, and several tools across all categories. This would obviously be a very complicated release flow. But I think the point that I wanted to mention here with this is that this actually is something that this periodic table combined with the DevOps diagram generator can actually help you pull together. And so now I'm actually going to hand this over to Brian, who's going to actually give you a demonstration of how you can actually take this diagram and convert this into a real release orchestration pipeline.
Thank you very much, Scott. And here we go, guys. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and let's just jump right in. So I'm going to just ask for a visual check. Scott, are you seeing the pipeline?
I am.
Very good. So guys, based on that table that Scott kind of left you with at the end, I need to kind of walk you through some basics first. So what you're looking at here is our Digital.ai release product. And the primary focus of our tool for this particular suite is release orchestration, automation, audit and compliance, reporting, all of those different types of things. Every organization has a plethora of enterprise tools that they're currently using within their organization, as depicted by that last diagram that Scott just kind of showcased to you. In the primary benefits of our digital AI release tool, there's 4 that I want you to walk away with. So one is a visualization into your process. So if you remember that diagram that Scott was just showing you coming out of the periodic table, lots of organizations that have that many enterprise tools in their organization would not have the ability to be able to have one location where they could go in, and from ideation to production release, be able to see all of the different steps that were taking place to be able to make all that happen. So that's one of the things that release allows you to be able to do. So if we go in here and we kind of take a look at this, I'm going to break this down for you. So what you're looking at here is a release template that has all of these disparate enterprise tools incorporated into a single workflow diagram. So we're going to walk through this. I know it might be a little painstaking, but I have a purpose to my madness here, and I really want to be able to make sure that you guys can visualize and conceptualize how you can use all of these types of tools easily within our system. So for example, if you notice here, we've got a planning stage, we've got a development phase, we've got a test phase, we've got a business unit sign off and CAB approval phase, and then last but not least, we have a production release phase. So in this, if you imagine, if we were going through a standard agile iterative style approach towards development, we might start off in a planning initiative in a 2-week cycle where we're going in and we're filtering our backlog of items and articulating that into a story that we could interact out of. Well, right away here, you'll notice that I've got a manual-based task to be able to capture that initiative. And then here, I have 3 different integrations with 3 different ticketing systems. I've got ServiceNow, Jira, and version 1, which we now refer to as Agility. And lots of organizations today work with version 1 and Jira. Lots of organizations work with version 1 and ServiceNow. Lots of organizations work with all 3. These are enterprise agile planning tools, as you guys all know. And again, geared towards ticketing, for change management, etc. So the second thing right away that I wanted to highlight to you outside of the visualization process is the ease of integrations that we have with third-party tools. So we have over 500 plus plugins with our current system today, and more are coming every day, because obviously the DevOps landscape is changing consistently. So again, here very easily we can show you how we can integrate with ServiceNow, a Jira, an Agility tool. And then right here, you'll notice that I'm sending out an email notification to signify the sprint kickoff. So obviously we can integrate easily with SMTP servers. And then I've also used some third-party communication tools in this whole release train as well to kind of show you some of those tools. So I've got a notification here on Slack, and I have a notification out for Microsoft Teams. So you're probably not using all of these within your organization, but again, I'm just kind of made a template that was over the top so you guys could see a lot of the integration capabilities. So once we've gone through our planning phase, obviously we're going to roll into development. So once a developer checks in their code, we can automatically trigger, for example, a usage of our ArcSand security tool, for example, where we can go in and we can protect that artifact. Maybe we want to obfuscate the code, or we want to put tracers in there to be able to look and see if we're getting any threat attacks. Then we might go in and we might queue our different CI initiatives. So we might kick off a build with Jenkins or Azure DevOps or GitLab or Bamboo or TeamCity. Again, you wouldn't be using all of these in a single release flow, but again, I just put these in here so that you guys could see how easily we can integrate with all of them. In regards to those integrations, let's talk about that a little bit. Our application basically does all of these integrations very easily through REST APIs and webhooks. So when it comes to doing integrations to these third-party tools, Jenkins, for example, you would give the API endpoint for your Jenkins server, then you would provide your username and password. For some of them, you have to provide an API token. So it just depends on what tool you're working with in regards to how you would connect with those tools. And to be able to connect to those tools, it's a very easy thing to do. You can simply go here to settings. Of course, I timed out. Hold on one second, guys. And then you go here to shared configuration, and you can see all of the integrations that we have with these third-party systems. So for example, you see I've got Bamboo and Black Duck and Checkmarks and GitLab and Jenkins. And if I go here and I click on this, you can see that all you have to do is provide the URL endpoint for your Jenkins server in this particular case, and then you provide the username and password to be able to connect to that system, and then you are on your merry way. You can also go in and you can test that connection once you've got it established and set up. It's very, very easy to do. Let's jump back over here to our template. So once we've got kind of our build done, then we might be in a position to where we want to do some deployments. We actually want to move those bits to our endpoints. So again, we might be using tools like Digital.ai deploy or Azure DevOps, or we might be using Octopus or an Ansible script, or we might be using Chef to be able to move those objects to our destination servers. Those may be metal servers in a data center where we're deploying to a Microsoft system or a Unix or Linux style server, or we might be deploying out to a provisioned cloud instance on AWS, Azure DevOps, or GCP. All of those are capable within our deployment mediums. Next, we might go and kick off some compliance scan initiatives, maybe using a Jenkins job. So we're kicking off a SonarQube scan or a checkmark scan or a Fortify scan, again, all originating out of a Jenkins job. And then right after that, we'll actually want to verify those compliance runs. So we might want to see what the results are of the compliance run from SonarQube. We might want to check and see what the compliance run on checkmarks was, or we might want to see, what came out of the Fortify scan, or we might want to check out the binary from our Nexus evaluation. All of these tools, again, are plugins that we have, and again, just part of your standard DevOps cycle process. Now, obviously, once you have those artifacts in your development environment, you need to do some level of testing. So we have integrated automated testing capabilities. So we have a sister company called Experitest, where we can create automated Appium style tests for Android style tests through Espresso or XWE style tests through iOS. We can also use Selenium to be able to run various levels of other unit test style initiatives against your applications, be they .NET or Java. Again, all of this can be automated. And again, I'm showcasing all of these different tools just to kind of give you some insights into some of the different template designs that you could create within your organization. One of the most critical things with any organization is that very few organizations are 100% automated. Now, there are several out there in the marketplace, and when you get to that fully automated type of scenario where you can release on demand continuously into your production-based environments, it's nirvana. It's the ultimate dream. But most organizations really don't have that. They kind of have some like semi-auto level process. And lots of times what you want to do with that is you want to incorporate, manual-based steps or gates into sign-off. So for example, this right here could be a gate initiative where we are requiring a sign-off and authorization for a move to test. And in essence, by having that there, you can go in and you can specify conditions. So we might want to have situations where, all testing logs have been attached for CAB approval. That could be something that they have to check off on before they can go in and they can sign off on that. And then once they sign off on that, you would then at that moment in time have an e-signature and a verification or validation that all of the required steps that were needed to be done in the development phase before we can move to test were completed. So now here, you'll notice that I am sending out an automated Slack update on our Slack channel, letting everybody know within the organization that Sprint XYZ has finished development and we're ready to move to test. And then lastly, we'll go in and we'll update our tickets. So we might want to add some updates to our ServiceNow ticket indicating that, development has been completed for Sprint 123, same thing with our Jira tickets, as well as our Agility version 1 tickets. So now once we move to test, I have a plugin here for Confluence. So we might need a situation where we're creating or updating new wiki pages. So we have a plugin to be able to allow for that. Here again is another gate where we can actually have a sign off and verification that the wiki updates were accomplished within our test environment and all of the appropriate data was loaded the way that we want it to. Here again, we're going to run those deployment engines. So you'll notice that I'm not doing any of the builds for the CIs. I'm not kicking off any Jenkins jobs or Bamboo jobs, because at this moment in time, we've already got our artifacts. So we might be pulling those artifacts from a Nexus repository. We might be pulling those artifacts from an Artifactory instance. Again, we have plugins for that. Here again, we're going to kick off those compliance scans. We're going to, again, reevaluate those compliance initiatives through our SonarQube or checkmarks or Fortify scans. Again, now we're going to start running automated unit tests or just automated feature tests in our test environment. And then once that's finished, now again, we can send a notification that says, hey, all of our automated testing has been completed. We can go in and we can update our tickets with information related to all of our automated testing initiatives. And then we could send out notifications to our QA teams signifying to them that, hey, the test environment is ready to go for QA manual feature testing initiatives. So you might go in and have manual-based test scripts that you need to have your QA teams go through and click on. You can see here that we have a plugin for updating test results within HPALM. I know that some organizations still use that tool. Obviously, it's one that we have a plugin for. There are other test case management systems that are out there on the marketplace that we can integrate with. And again, we understand through the DevOps landscape that we don't have plugins for everything that's out there. And creating plugins for our system is very easy. We use a Python framework so that our plugins can be written in either Python or Java or a combination therein. And it's very easy to create additional plugins for anything that has an exposed webhook or REST API endpoint. So after we've done our manual feature testing, you'll see here that we have a manual feature testing sign-off task. This could be something that could be assigned to an individual, or it could be assigned to a group. And then again here, we'll send out a notification to everybody letting them know that testing initiatives have been completed. And then lastly, we'll go through and we'll update our tickets again. So again, this is basically just letting all of our tickets know that all of the testing has been concluded. We can upload attachments. We can put in comments for things that were done in any of these previous steps. One of the really cool thing about our tool is that a lot of these tools that I'm talking about, like Azure DevOps to ServiceNow, or maybe GitLab to ServiceNow, or ServiceNow to Jira, they're starting to create some level of integrations through APIs, but our tool allows for bi-directional communication to be very easy because we can take outputs from a job task that was run in Jenkins. So these output properties that you see right here, this build number, this build status, in some instances, we actually get output JSON stacks, and we can actually assign those to variable parameters and then use those as inputs into updates for other similar tasks. So within a Slack notification, for example, we could actually have a variable that's pulling information from the Jenkins job and actually outputting that into a Slack message to be able to articulate information from the Jenkins job itself. We could take the build number from Jenkins and use that as an input parameter for updates into our ServiceNow tickets. So all of this bi-directional communication of information is very easily done within our release system. So after we get done with tests, of course, the natural progression is that we're going to go into a business unit sign-off and CAB approvals process. Not every organization has a CAB that they have to go through. Lots of them do. So just for the sake of this example, I went ahead and I put it in there. And then again, you'll notice that this is a gate task sign-off. So they have to go in and they have to answer some series of conditions. They have to sign off on that. And now again, we have an e-signature. And then we can now go to CAB. We have tons of organizations that are actually using this visual for their actual CAB approval process. So this CAB approval step could be assigned to an individual or a group. So if you were actually on a CAB board, you could get an email notification that this release was ready for production, rollout. And you could actually come in here and see all of the different steps that were done along the way for this release. You could see the outputs for each one of these steps. You could see all of the attachments or all of the comments that users were putting in for gate sign-offs, for testing initiatives. You can literally visualize your entire CAB approval process through the release tool itself. And then once you approve this, you can actually schedule the next step for when it's going to run. So for example, if you were on a CAB board and you met on Thursday, but you didn't want the production release to start until Friday night, you can literally go in and set the start date and time for when you want that next production step to start in your CAB meeting. So again, lots of flexibility, lots of really cool, just capabilities built into the tool. So once we go into our production state, let's talk about that. So obviously we need to, again, deploy again. So I have all of our different deployment options, and there's more than this. This is just, again, a small example of them. Obviously, we'd want to go in and do some level of maybe automated smoke testing to make sure that we don't have some level of a production error that's occurring. We might want to run some black duck scans to check some compliance initiatives. We would want to obviously migrate our Confluence wiki pages out to our production-based environment. And then obviously we need to have some level of a production sign-off. So here again, you can have a gate or a manual task that a user would go through and click on to make sure that everything was done correctly, and then they can sign off on that. And then lastly, we might go in and post some deployment events into our Dynatrace monitoring system on a production environment. So we can literally let it know that, hey, we just production deployed application ABC at this time. You can have all kinds of other monitoring applications like AppDynamics, Datacol. There's a myriad of different monitoring tools that are out there. Datadog is another one that we have plugins for you to be able to integrate with for production monitoring support. So lastly, after you have all that accomplished, you could send out a final notification that production deployment was complete and successful. And then obviously you would want to update your tickets again and put them all into a closed state. Now, everything that I just showcased to you was very happy path. It was kind of operating under the assumption that something, would always work. And that's never the reality of life. We're always going to run into bugs. We're going to run into failures. And so every single one of these tasks has the capability for you to be able to fail it and then restart something. I'm not running this release right now, and I'm not going to because I don't have all of the stuff integrated, so it wouldn't work end to end anyway. But if you run into a situation where, for example, you're going through your testing process, and let's say you got to the manual feature testing sign-off and something wasn't working correctly, you could fail that step and then you could send it back to development and you could restart that process. So the release engine gives you that ability to be very iterative, very agile based, and then still be able to track all of these KPIs, all of these metrics, all of this information. And then this is how this all rolls up, guys. So once you run a release and you're using our tool to garner information, you can go and you can leverage insights from our dashboards. So we've got 3 levels of dashboards, and I'll walk you through 3 of them just as examples. So this is what we refer to as our executive dashboard. This is kind of insights into your entire organization. So as those releases are running and you get roll-ups from that information, again, this whole template that you're looking at is a release. These verticals that you see here are what we refer to as phases, and then each one of these items that are inside of this are what we refer to as tasks. So if I go back over here, I can see that over the last 6 months, I've had 244 releases go out in my organization. My average release duration is 6 hours. I can see task efficiencies, how many tasks in all of my releases are manual, so about 15% versus 84% that are automated. But then you can see that out of those 15% of my tasks, I spend 63% of my time on those manual-based tasks. So everybody here, I'm sure, already understands the power of automation. It cuts down on delays. The more we can automate, the better, obviously. Here you can see release efficiencies by month, and obviously you can see that the automated capabilities are more efficient than the manual ones. You can also see number of releases by month that are going out within your organization. And then these are my favorites, guys. These are what we refer to as the dam or the bottleneck reports. So I can see my top 10 longest running releases. And again, let's just reiterate this. This whole thing is a release. These verticals are phases, and each one of these items in here is a task. So I can see my top 10 longest running releases. I can see my top 10 longest running phases. I can see my top 10 longest running tasks. And with this information, it's that, paradigm, you can't steer a parked car. Once you start getting information and you start getting data back, now you can start identifying the areas within your CI/CD process that are your weak points. And you can go in and you can start identifying areas for further automation, or maybe you need to take a task step and you need to take it back to your agile processing team and planning team and break that down into smaller steps. But all of this information gives you great insights into how you can effectively use information to be able to better your organization. So another dashboard that we have is, I keep timing out. Sorry guys, hold on one second. So when you go into the design tab, you have the ability within your organization to be able to build out folder structures. This could be built around applications, application teams. It could be based around business units. But what's great about this is that once you set these up, you can assign specific permissions to them. So certain individuals can only have access to view this folder, for example. But then you can also build out dashboards that are specific to those groups. So for example, we have an out-of-the-box deployment dashboard that will allow you to be able to see at a visual standpoint where we are within our different environments. So within our development, test, and production environment, these are my applications that I'm running in those. These are the versions that are in there right now. So you can see right here for the mortgage web application, 10153 went through dev, test, and to production. If I scroll down, I can see all of the different activity that was taking place on those machines. So I can see if something was deployed successfully, if there was a deployment attempt and it failed, if there was one that is in process. All of this information can be disseminated to me. And if I wanted to see all activity, I could click on that and see all activity over, the life of that different, that particular endpoint. I can also see total number of deployments. I can see what my deployment efficiencies are. There's just a host of great dashboarding capabilities built into release that, again, takes you from that periodic table of DevOps to reality. And all of these dashboards can be configured. You can very easily go in and add tiles that are based on our plugins. So the number of tile options that you have will be dependent on the plugins that you have installed. So you can see here that I've got ArcSand tiles available to us that are security based. I've got Black Duck tiles that I can leverage. I've got Experitest for continuous testing. I've got Fortify. I've got Jira, I've got Jira tiles that I can put into my dashboards. You can build out any myriad of different dashboard needs that you have internally for your organization. So if I go back to this template right here that we kind of started at, the lowest level of dashboards that we have available within our tooling system is our release dashboards. So this is specific to this particular release. So you'll see that we've got 82 tasks. As this release is running, you can get insights into where we are on a complete state for all those tasks. We've got a machine learning engine that allows you to be able to kind of get a risk health check on where you are within that particular release. You can see release timelines for, planning, development, all of the different phases that we kind of have set in there. And then we can also see resource usage. And we can see that, none of those tasks are assigned yet. But as you start assigning tasks to individuals and groups, that'll all showcase here. You can also go in and you can add additional elements here again, because I mentioned that all of these dashboards are configurable. So very easy to visualize with OKRs and KPIs information that's happening within your organization, and then very easy to modify so that you can get pertinent information that's relevant to your organization. The last step that I wanted to cover with you guys before we kind of start wrapping things up is the ease of use for creating audit reports and being able to visualize that chain of custody. One of the marquee things about release, and again, even about the periodic table of DevOps, is that you need to know who did what, when, where, how. And so one of the easy things to do with our tool is to be able to go in and generate an audit report. I created this one earlier. You'll notice that I did this just a couple minutes ago. And when you open up that audit report, what it looks like is this. So from May until November, so for the last 6 months, I generate a report to be able to show all of the releases that took place in my organization. I can see ones that were completed, ones that aborted, how long it took them to run, who started it, what template was run whenever it was executed. If there are ones that are in progress, it'll show that. And then when you click on an actual release itself, you get a detailed report that looks like this. So this release template will show you, and this one's a little bit different than the one that I actually started in, but all of your phases, all of your tasks, all of your manual steps will show up in this audit and compliance report. So here we have a template that had an integration phase, an acceptance test, regression test. We had integrations with Jenkins version 1. We had a Python script. We had an integration with Slack. If I had a gate and it was assigned to somebody, who completed it. But all of this detailed information is available to you at your fingertips. So one of the biggest things that organizations run into with audit and compliance within their organizations is the time it takes to coalesce all this information together. Release makes that very easy for you so that you can just one-click generate these reports. And you can do it in a myriad of ways. So if I go back and want to go and generate a new report, I can go in and I can do it based on a time frame. I can go in and I can add filters so that I can do it based on a release tag, for example. I can do it on an application. I can do it on an environment. So you can pull together all of this information very easily and very quickly, and then literally just hand these reports off to your audit and compliance teams, and then get back to the business about adding value to your organization. nobody likes to deal with audit and compliance reports. And I have tons of customers that before they started using our tools would tell me that they would spend weeks or even months throughout the course of a year going through audit and compliance initiatives. So our goal in mind with our tool is to be able to simplify that process for you. So let's kind of go back and review a couple things, and I'm going to start wrapping things up. So the number one thing that I hope that you walk away with is that with our periodic table of DevOps, you have the opportunity to be able to kind of articulate the tooling and systems that you're using today. Then when you leverage that into our release tool, you start getting some of these benefits right away. Visualization into your process, and you get to see all of the manual and automated third-party integrations that you have within your organization. Visualization, again, number one. Number two, that integration with those third-party tools. Again, I already mentioned that we have over 500 integrations with third-party tools, and it's very easy to extend our library to be able to add new tools, because there's always going to be more that are coming on the marketplace. We want to make that a very easy process for any of our customers. And of course, we're adding new plugins every day. In fact, we just wrote a plugin for JFrog X-Ray the other day, and that's going to be one that's going to be hitting our community repo. If anybody's interested, we have a public repo that's out on GitHub, and you can go out there and check out all of our plugins that we have available for our environments today. The third thing that obviously I wanted to highlight and just chit chat again is reporting. You know, what good is information if you can't get reporting out of it? So we have a plethora of out-of-the-box reports that allow you to be able to garner information, as well as the ability to be able to create customized level dashboards. And then lastly, number 4 is the audit and compliance and chain of custody reports. We make it very easy for you to be able to see in an audit style initiative all of the things that were done when you sent that release out into its production environment. All you have to do is one click, generate this report, and then you can hand it off to your internal audit and compliance teams. And then again, get back to the business of adding value to your organization. A couple of other little things that, you know, our tools offer in regards to benefits. And Scott mentioned this, and so I'm going to highlight it again. Standardization. You know, you can go in and you can set up these templates to create standards within your organization. That way people aren't skipping steps when they start doing production releases. You can create repeatability. You know, a lot of times you have this rockstar DevOps engineer and he leaves, and now you're just left in the lurch sometimes. By leveraging our tools and setting up these automated templates, you don't need to worry about that, because the system and the engine can handle allowing individuals to continue doing their deployments, and then you can take your time ramping somebody back up to be able to get the understanding of everything that's happening in the underpinnings of your internal organizational engine. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand this back over to Scott. He's going to go ahead and take care of a couple of additional slides. And thank you so very much. I look forward to your questions.
Thanks, Brian. So again, this is back to this picture again. This here is, again, the logical diagram that was created using the DevOps pipeline generator that Brian just, practically, took theory and made it practical using the Digital.ai release. And I think that the key point that I always want to emphasize is that, these are all, these tools are all in the periodic table. You can create this own picture here and then use a tool such as Digital.ai release to actually make it into something that does release your software into production. So pulling this all together, essentially you have your path to DevOps improvement. As I mentioned before, the first step that you take is to identify the biggest problems that your organization currently faces. I mean, this will differ from organization to organization because each organization has different problems. And this really depends on what's holding up your release processes and your teams from being as effective as possible. And this involves, looking into your release processes, seeing where your bottlenecks are, and identifying the types of problems that you think will have the biggest benefit to your organization if you were to fix them. The next step is to research the tools that, if you were to implement them, would help you achieve these goals. One of the tools ways of doing this would be to use the periodic table of DevOps to know sort of who are the available players in each of the different areas of DevOps that would help resolve these specific types of problems. And finally, once you've figured out which tools you think are the ones that will help your organization the most, you can then go ahead and design your release pipeline and then implement it to actually make this into a reality and gain these benefits across your organization. And this is where the DevOps pipeline generator and a tool such as Digital.ai release would help you orchestrate your release pipeline end to end. So that essentially wraps up our presentation, and now we'll have an opportunity for some question and answer. But just to emphasize again, you can visit us at our website. The link is provided there to play around with our periodic table and use it to help build your own release pipeline. And with that, we'll take some questions.
All right, great. We have about 12 or 13 minutes for questions, folks. So if you do have a question, go ahead and use your GoToWebinar control panel to submit it. We've gotten some great ones in so far, so let's dive right on in. Here's your first one. I happen to be a little bit off topic here, but my question refers to the DevOps Diagram Generator. I tried to share it via LinkedIn, but it shows no data I've added. So you guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So one thing I just wanted to first mention, this isn't something that I covered, while going through the web interface, is that the DevOps Pipeline Generator does give you the ability to share the results of it to your social media, which would include, again, with, pages such as LinkedIn. Now, getting back to the question itself, first of all, I'm sorry that it didn't work out for you, but definitely reach out to us. We'll be in contact with anybody who has these sorts of issues, and we'll reach out to you and do what we can to help you be successful. We obviously want you to be able to share, this with your social media network and get the most out of both the periodic table and the DevOps Pipeline Generator.
All right, great. Next question, is there a dashboard view to track progress on the CI/CD pipeline?
So yes, I'll take that one. And the short answer is yes. Again, I mentioned that there are customizable dashboard capabilities within the tool. And so really you can go in and you can build out whatever it is that you need. So the dashboards that I showcased were just, some of the top 3 that we have out of the box. But we have lots of customers that are building out progression CI/CD dashboards to be able to get insights into maybe, for example, things that they're doing in ServiceNow, or things that they're doing in Jira, or things that they're doing across their entire release process. All of those dashboards are configurable, and again, you can build out whatever it is that you need, that your organization would glean and best benefits from.
Okay. All right, great. Another quick reminder, guys, if you have a question for either of our speakers, go ahead and use your GoToWebinar control panel. We have about 10 minutes left here. Next question, how are bottlenecks identified and resolved using the DevOps periodic table?
Yeah, I'll start this question, but I might hand this off to Brian afterwards. So the one thing just to note is that, the periodic table itself doesn't really identify the bottlenecks. It's, each organization will have their own bottlenecks that are part of their release processes. And these bottlenecks are most easily identified in sort of, where are you spending the most time when it comes to doing a release? Are you spending time, gathering approvals manually from various people on the team? Is the particular stage in the process, such as CI or anything else causing the bottleneck? So it's really more of a looking first at your own processes to see where the bottlenecks are occurring, and then the periodic table will then be able to help you identify what are the tools that will help automate or make these in particular bottlenecks faster, so that they will no longer be bottlenecks in your process.
Yeah, I think I'll add some color to that. When Scott started off with the periodic table of DevOps, that is an engine tool on our website that helps you identify, again, best of breed products that are in the DevOps space. Maybe start selecting some of these tools so that you can kind of get some initial visual into some of the tools that you're using in your landscape today. But from a feature capability, it doesn't have any ability to be able to help you do anything within your organization. It is a marketing driven initiative tool. Release, our Digital.ai release tool, is what allows you to be able to start identifying those bottlenecks. So you would be in a position to be able to leverage the periodic table of DevOps to be able to start seeing, again, best of breed tools, kind of getting a snapshot portfolio view of some of the things that you have in your landscape, and then use that as a transition medium to be able to get our release tool to then start implementing those real world style templates that I showcased earlier, and then leveraging the KPI and OKR dashboards to start getting those insights into where your bottlenecks are.
All right, great. Next question. Is this helpful when the CI/CD pipeline are on the same platform, say Azure DevOps? I can see the benefit when we have different CI/CD tools and everything shows up on one screen, but when using only one platform for everything, how does it apply more benefit or quality?
I'll take that one. That's a great question, and we have customers that ask us that all the time. And I'll be very honest with you. Our tool is really geared towards the Fortune 1000 organizations. But I mean, we work with all entities. I mean, we work with small orgs, medium orgs, we work with really large enterprises. And I have some customers that come to me and say, hey, your tool is amazing and that looks fantastic, but I'm a small dev shop and everything that I do is on the Azure DevOps platform, and I can do everything that you're just talking about on Azure DevOps, and I don't need to worry about all of these just, deploying to data centers with Unix and Windows-based systems, and I don't want to have cloud agnostic initiatives where I'm able to deploy to AWS, GCP, and Azure. We get that, and sometimes customers that are like that don't become customers of ours, and that doesn't bother us at all. Obviously, we see huge benefits in the tool from this perspective. Even if you were going in and you were using an Azure DevOps only style environment, Azure DevOps doesn't have a really easy way for you to be able to integrate back into maybe some of your other enterprise tools that you're using, like ServiceNow or Jira or Slack or something like that. So if you wanted to be able to have a engine to be able to integrate with other maybe custom level systems that you guys have internally to your organization, and then integrate that with Azure DevOps, our tool would give you the capability to be able to handle that.
Yeah, and I think I just wanted to add to this as well, is that, obviously DevOps is a continuously evolving process at companies across the board. So, even if Azure DevOps is providing the functionality that your organization needs today, it may not continue to provide that, as new problems arise. So I think that, even where the periodic table would help in those situations is that if a new problem comes up and you need to select another type of tool, or if you want to, maybe consider integrating something else as part of your end-to-end DevOps solution, this would still provide you with the overall sort of picture, the landscape of DevOps to help you figure out how to approach it.
All right. All right, doing a quick time check. We're about 9 minutes to the top of the hour. I think we have time for 2, maybe 3 more questions here. So next one, if any of the tool plugins break, how efficiently can those be fixed or the troubleshooting be done?
You want to go first on that one?
Oh, sure. I can definitely do that. I think so. In term, I think the answer depends a bit about which tool plugins and how they break. Of course, with many different plugins, there could be all sorts of different problems and root causes of what's causing that. So, I think that the real answer is that looking at the logs and the dashboards would help you identify where the plugins are having problems and sort of help you identify how to fix it. So, Brian, do you have any more specifics that you like to apply for this?
Totally. So let's get technical for a bit. So first and foremost, all of our plugins are supported by our customer success organization. So if you're using a plugin and something's not working, we have an entire customer support system that has SLAs to be able to attend to your organization. So if you, for example, are using plugin XYZ and you're running into some error that you have no clue about how to resolve, you can submit a ticket to us and we will help you manage that and work through it. The other thing is that as you start getting into plugin development, it's very easy to kind of debug those plugs by using logger errors within the system. So you could build out a dev environment, you could throw that plugin into a particular dev environment, and then you could add in additional logging, parameters to be able to get additional information to maybe find out what's going on. It may be that your organization requires a proxy setup and you didn't set that up correctly whenever you put the plugin in place, or it might be that you're running into a firewall issue and you're trying to do an outbound communication that you don't have a firewall hole open for. All of those different types of things are issues that could cause a plugin to break. And there's a couple of ways that you could handle it. You could either do a self-debug diagnostic process, which we would actually showcase to you and teach you how to do when you first purchase the tool. And then obviously we always have our customer success team there available to you to be able to respond to tickets. And you have the option to be able to buy in at different SLA levels. So service level agreements for just standard typically tend to be about 24 hours. And then if you're in an organization where you want faster turnaround times. You can pay for premium and then platinum level services if you even wanted a one-on-one dedicated resource to just pick up a phone when you call. So we have all that available to you all the time.
Excellent. All right, let's see. Next question. In your planning stage tools, do you have any automated tool that indicates your potentially dangerous dependencies when you change code? Also, does your audit methodology show actual changes of code within each task that had failures?
So those are two totally different questions, and so I'll tackle them one by one. So in regards to the planning stuff, we have a sister tool that's called Digital.ai Agility, and it's focused around enterprise agility planning. So our periodic table of DevOps and our Digital.ai release tool doesn't really do much of that. But our sister tool does. So anybody that has questions related to that, I would recommend that you go on our website and you check out our Digital.ai agility tool. That would be the tool that would be able to help you handle all of that stuff. Now, in regards to the audit and compliance on the failure initiatives, yes, if you have tasks that are failing, if you have tasks that were restarted, if you have phases that were restarted, any of those things are going to show up in the audit and compliance reports, because again, it's all activity that occurred during the entire process of the release flow. So all of that information will absolutely show in your audit and compliance reports. And so when you open them up and you review them, you can see where failures occurred along the way, where things were restarted, all of that type of stuff.
All right, excellent. Okay, I think we have time for one more question and then we'll close things up. Okay, so when it comes to HTTPS digital.ai.release product, is there a way to use mockup/stub in place of real product? Say I would like to omit some stages of the workflow in favor of validation of flow in general?
So the short answer is yes. You get to build out the templates the way that you want to. So if you wanted to be able, and one of the things that we do, I love this question, by the way, is for developers, a lot of us understand the concept of object-oriented development. And so one of the things that we do a lot with our customers is we actually build out object-oriented templates. So for example, you might have a template that's geared around just the compliance and checking engine, and you can put that into a template by itself. You can have another template that's centered and geared around all of the testing initiatives. You might have another template that's geared around just the deployment process. You might have another template that is just for updating your ticketing systems. Those can all be built into a level of what we refer to as sub-releases, and then you can call those sub-releases from any other kind of master. And so we have that ability to be able to build out object-oriented templates, and then you can actually call just that little subset for the validation like you were referring to, or you can have a master template that calls all of those different steps because you want to see the entire end-to-end process flow. So all of that capability is built into the tool, and it's very feature-rich.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so we're about 3 minutes to the top of the hour. So unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for question and answer period. But I do want to thank everybody who did submit questions. We had a ton of great ones. If we didn't get to your question, I apologize, but please know that the folks at Digital.ai will be getting a copy of all of the questions that came in, and I am sure they'll be more than happy to follow up with you offline to get your question answered. I also want to remind the audience that today's event has been recorded. So if you missed any or all of the webinar, or if you just want to watch it again, you'll have the opportunity to do so. Following today's webinar, we will be sending out an email that contains a link to access the webinar on demand. And the webinar is also going to be living on the DevOps.com website. So you can always go look for it there. Just go to DevOps.com/webinars, look in the on-demand section, and it should be right there waiting for you. Okay, I mentioned at the top of the hour, we would be doing a drawing for 4 $25 Amazon gift cards. So without further ado, drum roll, please. Let's go ahead and get to that. Our first winner today is Chuck C. Congratulations, Chuck. Second winner today is Rick P. Congratulations, Rick. Third winner today is Vlad B. Congratulations, Vlad. And our fourth and final winner today is Barbara H. Congratulations, Barbara. We'll be following up with all 4 of you via email to get your Amazon gift card over to you. So please check your inbox, and if you don't see anything there, please check your spam folder. Okay, Ryan and Scott, thank you both so much for a great presentation. I just love those demos. So thank you so much for walking us through the whole process and telling us about the periodic table of DevOps tools. Always good stuff. So thanks so much for your time and your expertise. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Also want to thank the audience for joining me today. This is Charlene O'Hanlon, and I'm signing off. Have a great day, everybody, and please stay safe.